Funding for Election 2018 coverage is provided in part by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership association, 88,000 strong in North Dakota, creating real possibilities right here in North Dakota, and by the members of Prairie Public.
Good evening and welcome to continuing coverage of the 2018 election from Prairie Public and from AARP. Thanks for joining us this evening. Tonight we're going to feature a debate for the 6-year term for the North Dakota Public Service Commission. Our two candidates, Randy Christman, who is the incumbent Republican on the Public Service Commission, and Gene Brandt, the Democratic challenger. Thank you both for being here. We'll begin with 1-minute opening statements, and by coin flip, it has been determined that Randy Christman will begin.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you to Prairie Public and AARP for providing this opportunity for us to talk about the issues of the day with the people of the state. I've always said that one of the most important decisions I ever made in my life was when I was 17 years old and joined the North Dakota Army National Guard. I learned a lot of valuable lessons in the military. Among the most valuable were the importance of being part of a team and serving a greater good. I was able to do that in my years when I was ranching, by being a director of a large telecommunications cooperative, and by serving 18 years in the North Dakota Senate. But in 2012, the people of North Dakota chose me to serve instead on the Public Service Commission. And now, looking back at my first term, there's a lot of accomplishments that I'm mighty proud of, but I also see opportunities to continue doing good things for the people of the state, and I look forward to discussing those things with you tonight.
Thank you very much. And now we turn to the challenger, Gene Brandt.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And first of all, I want to thank Prairie Public, AARP, for giving us this valuable time to share our views with the people of North Dakota, the voters out there. I'll give you a brief background of myself, and it will set it up so you will understand why I am interested in running for the PSC to serve you on the commission. I was born and raised on a farm and ranch in north central North Dakota. To this day, I remain on the farm and ranch that my husband and I have now operated for some 30, 40 years. And we raised our 3 children there, worked beside each other. While we were doing those things, I also became involved with the North Dakota Rural Electric Co-ops. I served on the board of directors at North Central Electric. I have been there for nearly 2 decades. Also, I serve now on the Central Power, which is a transmission cooperative out of Minot, and I serve on the North Dakota Association of Rural Electrics as well. For the last 10 years, I have...
Your 1 minute is up.
Thank you.
Well, let's begin with questions this evening, and the first one will go to Gene Brandt first. What are your thoughts now on the future of wind farms in North Dakota, and also how does that relate to the coal industry and the future of coal in North Dakota?
I'm very familiar with the wind farms. As I told you, I work on the board at the RECs, and we work very closely with the renewable energies and with our coal-based energies. I think it's very important to understand how the mix has to work in order to provide the people with affordable and reliable power. The renewables are great and they are part of our portfolio, but we also have to have the coal-based power as our generation, our main generation, so that when the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining for solar, we have power coming into the people's homes. And as far as the public services position on that, I believe that we need to be aware of that reliability, that integrity of that base load generation, as well as the resiliency to the grid.
Randy Christman, your response.
Well, as long as wind energy is subsidized to the level that it is by our policymakers in Washington, D.C., it will continue to be developed. That development will continue to have an adverse impact on both the nuclear industry as well as the coal industry around the nation. The good news in North Dakota is our coal industry is extraordinarily efficient, so the adverse impacts have been felt much more in other states than here, but do not doubt the fact that there have been adverse impacts to North Dakota, and that will continue. The PSC's role in all this is to see that when wind energy is developed in the state, it is done in accordance with the laws and the policies as approved by the North Dakota legislature. And we have done that with our siting hearings. We have hearings out in the areas that are going to be developed, so we get information from the people that live there. I want to emphasize that North Dakota is, I believe, the first regulatory body in the nation to require light mitigation technology on wind turbines, and that is being done in order to offset the impacts of the flashing red lights on our beautiful night sky. That technology, however, can't be used until the Federal Aviation Administration approves it. To me, even more importantly, is the fact that we are the first regulatory body in the nation to require decommissioning plans along with financial assurances from the owners to make sure the plans are followed, so that someday in 30, 40, 50 years, whenever they become obsolete, those lights will be turned off, the wind farms will be removed, and our prairie will be returned to normal. That was a priority of mine when I was elected. I feel good about our accomplishments. There's still tweaks to be made, but this is something that is going to pay big dividends for future generations.
Okay, to Jean Brandt, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, I just want to add that the role of the Public Service Commission is as a regulatory commission, and it is to look for the best for the people of North Dakota, protecting them, the lands, and the environment. And I feel that that is a very important thing to do and to keep in mind as we are citing wind generation, and also, like I spoke of earlier, that reliability issue, because we are also supposed to be assuring that the people receive the energy in a timely and a fair manner.
And Randy Chrisman, if you'd like a final word.
Sure. Our siting hearings, where we go out, have hearings in the areas that are going to be impacted, as well as our work with the companies and the regional transmission organizations that have been established by the federal government, are important in making sure that these projects are done not only in accordance with the environmental and safety laws of the state of North Dakota, but also in order to make sure that the energy system will be reliable for the future.
All right, the next question goes to Randy Chrisman first. Is it fair to allow utilities to get an interim rate increase and then have to refund it back to consumers? Is it fair to make consumers pay that up front?
It is. It's a long tradition, and it's been that way for a very good reason. When the utility companies come in with a rate case, we don't want to be hurried in order to do that. One of the things that has been extraordinarily important to me and to the current commission is to make sure that we keep our rates absolutely as low as possible, while also making sure that the company has the resources that they need to provide dependable power and safe power or gas in either case. In order to do that, in order to make sure that the rates are as low as possible, we need time to process it. The focus that we've shown on this is one of the reasons why our rate cases take a little longer than a lot of other states, because we leave no stone unturned. We make sure that we've explored every possibility to keep those rates as low as possible, and that takes time. In the meantime, the company collects the rates that they say they need. If it turns out to be more than what they needed, they're refunded to the consumers.
Okay, Jean Brandt, your response.
From the PSC side of things and the people of North Dakota, the rate increases are a huge item that they are concerned about with the commission, what they're doing, what they are working on. No one can afford, when you're working in a working family or a fixed income, no one can afford huge rate increases year after year after year. I understand rate increases, I understand rate decreases, I understand rate structure, and substantiated rates are acceptable, but it must be looked at from all viewpoints. And as my opponent said, you can't do this overnight, but you must listen to the voice of the people. And sometimes I think the people's voices gets kind of buried under the other things that are being brought up and looked at, and they are not being looked after. I intend to listen, to research, and to do the best for those people that those rates really do have huge impact on.
Randy Chrisman, your response?
Every rate case receives multiple opportunities for public input. We have public input sessions, then we have open cases where we gather a lot of information from consumers as well as from advocacy groups. The impacts of high rates, though, are so important to lower income people, and it's one of the things I always like to emphasize, that in my opinion, if the rates get too high, lower income people in many cases will continue to have power and gas, but that may be offset by not being able to have medications or healthy food or other things. That's why it's so important to me to make sure that in every one of these cases, the company has what they need, but only what they need. The rest comes back to the consumers.
The last word on this question is for Jean Brandt.
Yes, that is a very good point, and I am there for the voice of the people. There are often people, we talk about the public hearings, the open comment sessions and so forth, but there are people that are not comfortable getting up and speaking in front of a group or at an open comment session. I can be that voice for those people because I do understand that, and I will go to all lengths to make sure that the people's voices are heard and that they are assured a just and fair rate with affordable and safe power coming into their homes and businesses.
The next question is for Jean Brandt first. The Public Service Commission has been asked to submit a budget with a 10% budget cut. One thing that's being proposed is to eliminate the grain inspection program. First, is it a good idea or not? And if not, where would you start cutting under a 10% budget cut directive?
Budget cuts are always a bad deal to have to deal with, no matter what we're doing, because I believe that things should be run well so that you don't have to be slashing things easily. Then you know that you were operating out of your means. I do not believe that changing things in our elevators, weights and measures are a huge accomplishment that the PSC has dealt with in the past and come to, and we don't want to cut back on those types of areas where there could be fraud or any kind of neglect or misuse going on from that end. It would have to be carefully looked at. Not being a commissioner at this time, it's hard for me to actually define where would I make those cuts. But I can guarantee you that I would look long and hard. I've had to do those things in my personal life, in my work life, in the oil industry. When I worked, I was in administration. Many times we had to make cuts, benefit issues, and so forth. Safety, number one, we need to keep safety first. We need to be on top of that. We cannot sacrifice that, but there will be ways to find a cut as it is demanded by the Commission.
Randy Chrisman, your response.
In order to meet Governor Burgum's 10% general fund reduction mandate, one or more of our safety or compliance programs has to be reduced. Any thorough evaluation of our budget shows that those are the only places to get that kind of revenue savings. Every one of those programs has real-life impacts on North Dakota citizens. After much discussion, this is the program that was chosen. However, as part of our budgeting process, agencies are also allowed to submit a prioritized list of other recommendations. Our number one priority of those recommendations is restoration of the grain licensing program. That's a program that provides real benefits to North Dakota ag producers. We have excellent field inspectors on our staff, and I am going to be arguing vociferously on behalf of the idea of restoring that program, and I'm confident that by next spring, when our budget is finally approved, the Governor Burgum, as well as the legislature, are going to see that this reduction, while it's huge to our small budget, is not that huge to the overall state budget and ought not happen.
Jean, would you like a response to that?
Again, I told you earlier, folks, that I have that strong ag background, and I understand the need for those safeguards, the need for those things to be in place. Again, I will say I don't feel it's a good place to start cutting, and where it would be, I would really have to do the research on that, and the cuts would be made as needed and done as efficiently as possible.
Anything further, Randy Chrisman?
Only to add that my own community, my own local elevator, had an insolvency shortly before I came on the commission. I've seen my friends and neighbors live through that. The work that this program does in those rare instances, because I want to emphasize most of our grain licensees are very stable, but in those rare instances of insolvencies, this is an important program to help make those ag producers as close to whole as possible.
All right, our next question goes first to Randy Chrisman. Given the track record with DAPL, the Dakota Access Pipeline? Are there things that could have been done differently in the future, or things that could have been done differently with PSC and others looking back on it, and all the controversies over that point? So again, was it handled correctly? Are there different things that could be done in the future?
You know, at the agency, we're big promoters of new innovation and technology, and as part of that, really every case that comes before us, we look at to see if there are lessons learned, areas where we can improve our procedures. Of course, DAPL was no different. But to look at that case specifically, I want to emphasize that our entire procedure in reaching a conclusion by the PSC in the Dakota Access Pipeline case was done completely in accordance with North Dakota law and regulation and policy approved by the legislature. In fact, we went above and beyond. Instead of holding one public hearing, we held 3, and they were spread out in Mandan, Killdeer, and Williston in order to lessen drive time and make sure people could come. That public input is a great help to us, and in that case caused multiple changes in that pipeline before we were willing to approve it. So it was ultimately approved, and only after a final decision was made did the extreme environmental groups and teams of lawyers show up and explore every avenue to try and find flaws in our process. Our process was put under a legal microscope in front of multiple courts and in front of multiple judges, and was never found to be anything but appropriate. And I will emphasize that that project now is moving North Dakota oil dependably, effectively, and safely, and it is doing it in a way that benefits our mineral owners, our job developers, as well as North Dakota taxpayers. It was a good, well-handled project.
Okay. All right. Well, what has happened is that Gene has apparently had a bit of a medical issue, so we're taking care of it. And Randy, I'll just give you a few seconds just to wrap up.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Dave Thompson, Prairie Public, and AARP for providing this opportunity tonight. We explored some of the issues that are important, but I think a further exploration of the agency would show the importance and the complexity of this agency. And I hope that people will take advantage of that, really look into the things that we do at the Public Service Commission, and what they're going to see are public safety and compliance programs that are operating efficiently and effectively, a coal mine reclamation program that I think is the best in the nation. They're going to see regulatory rates that are low, and they're going to see $9.5 billion worth of energy infrastructure projects, almost $140 million a month, cited and approved safely and reliably.
Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching and listening to this debate tonight. Thanks to our partners AARP. And again, remember to vote in November. For Prairie Public and AARP, I'm Dave Thompson.
Funding for Election 2018 coverage is provided in part by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership association, 88,000 strong in North Dakota, creating real possibilities right here in North Dakota, and by the members of Prairie Public.